Hey guys, Miss Fearing here. Welcome to Unit 6, Note 7. We are going to look at solving quadratics applications now. So in the last one, we looked at graphing them. We're going to take a peek at how we can use our math skills to find those different points. So basically, it's going to be really important for you to make sure that when you read the problem, you are looking for keywords, things that are going to be extremely important for you that are going to help you find what you need, okay? So there's a couple keywords we're going to talk about here in a little bit, but it could be asking for either a maximum or a minimum or anything else, okay? It could be asking for like when it hits a certain point, when did it hit the ground. Those are kind of the key things that you're looking for when you're going to hit a max revenue. But again, it's going to be a lot of like maximum and minimum or when does it hit a certain point or the ground. So those are kind of the two that you're going to look at. And we're going to talk about when to use what formula depending on the words you see. I could give you different information, right? So I'm going to for sure give you an equation. So something in that y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. But I could then go ahead and ask, like, when will it hit 100 feet? So you would then have to know if that is giving you something for your x value or your y value. So in that actual equation, I'm going to tell you like x is your height, y is your time in seconds, or vice versa, whatever the case may be. I'm going to tell you what your x and your y stand for. If I give you additional information, you then have to plug that in for either the x or the y. Here's where you're going to determine, I'm going to show you kind of how to determine which equation you're going to use. So it's really, really important you know that if you see the word maximum or minimum, that's your vertex formula. Okay, so maximum or minimum is vertex formula, which was x equals the opposite of b over 2 times a. Okay, so vertex formula is x equals the opposite of b over 2 times a. And then what you do is you get that answer. Okay, so you're using your b and your a from your y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, you're plugging it in. You're going to get an x answer. And what you're going to do then is you're going to plug that in for x to get your y answer. So your vertex is a point. It's an x and a y. You need both of these answers. You need your x and you need your y. Okay, but you always start with this formula, which is opposite of b divided by 2 times a. That's if it's asking for a maximum or a minimum. If it's asking for anything else, when is it going to hit this point? When is it going to hit the ground? Anything else, then you're going to do the quadratic formula, which is what you've been doing this entire time with x equals opposite of b plus or minus the square root, this really big long one, okay, all over 2 times a. That's your quadratic formula, and that's if you do not see the word maximum or minimum. Okay, the last thing you need to do is after you solve that, you need to make sure that you have a label. Okay, a problem with words needs an answer with words. So let's look at this first example here. The Power Tower at Valley Fair takes people up to the top of a 256-foot tower and then drops them safely at speeds reaching up to 96 feet per minute, or per second. This can be modeled by the equation y equals negative 16x squared plus 96x plus 256, where x is the time and y is the height. Okay, we may or may not need that, but that's usually something really important. So I'm just underlining it. X is the time, y is the height. How many seconds will it take the riders to reach the ground after being dropped? So I do not see the word maximum or minimum anywhere in this problem. Okay, the question is asking how many seconds will it take for the riders to reach the ground after being dropped. It's not asking for a maximum or a minimum. So I'm going to go ahead and I know that I'm going to use quadratic formula. Okay, so that's going to be my opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So we've seen this. In this problem, I have y equals negative 16x squared plus 96x plus 256. So I have my a because that's with the x squared, my b because that's with the x, and my c because that's alone. And I'm going to take those and I'm going to plug them in. So I'm going to have the opposite of b. Well, b is 96, so the opposite of 96 is negative 96 plus minus the square root b squared minus 4 times a is negative 16. C is 256. All divided by 2 times A, which is negative 16. Okay, so if you remember all the way back to our assignment when we did quadratic formula, you're going to plug this entire thing into your calculator. Okay, so we're going to plug that entire thing into our calculator. When I do that, I still have that negative 96 up front. I have plus minus 160 is what I got. Divided by 2 times A, well, 2 times negative 16 is negative 32. From here, because you don't have that plus minus, remember you need to split it into 2 equations. You're going to have negative 96 plus 160 divided by negative 32. And negative 96 minus 160 divided by negative 32. So if I do the plus one, I get negative 96 plus 160 divided by negative 32. I get negative 2. If I do the minus one, I'm going to get a positive 8. So the question's asking how many seconds will it take the rider to reach the ground? It does not make sense for me to say negative 2 seconds. We don't talk about time in negative, so this is actually not going to be my answer. My final answer is going to be 8, and I need to label that seconds because it's asking for how long. 8 seconds. All right, let's look at number 2. To get to Valley Fair, you need a car, so you'd better start saving now. The Mayans are famous for their woven products, including bracelets. While you might not be as good at making bracelets as they are, it would be a good opportunity to make some money. If you make and sell these bracelets, your savings can be modeled by the equation y equals negative x squared plus 26x plus 123, where x is the number of bracelets, okay, x is the number of bracelets, and y is your revenue. So the first question is asking how many bracelets would you have to sell to earn $100? Again, it does not say anything about maximum or minimum, so this is going to be quadratic formula. But I am given some additional information. I am given that I need to sell $100, or I want to earn $100. So that's going to be my revenue. So what I'm going to do is I actually know that y is my revenue. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to plug it into this equation for the y value. So I'm going to have 100 equals negative x squared plus 26x plus 123. Now remember, you have to be set equal to 0 before you can solve this. So I'm going to subtract 100 from both sides. So I'm going to get 0 equals negative x squared plus 26x plus 23. I now have my A, my B, and my C, and I can plug it into quadratic formula. So I'm going to get opposite of B, so negative 26 plus minus the square root B squared minus 4 times A is a negative 1 times C is a positive 23 all over 2 times A. So if I do, again, this piece in my calculator, the square root and everything, I'm going to end up with negative 26 plus minus 27.71 divided by 2 times negative 1, negative 2. So I'm going to split it up. I have negative 26 plus 27.71 divided by negative 2, and negative 26 minus 27.71 divided by negative 2. So if I do the plus, I am going to get a negative 0.855. If I do the minus, I'm going to get a 26.855. So the question is asking how many bracelets will I have to sell? It doesn't make sense for me to have a negative number for that either, so that's not going to be my answer. I can't sell a 0.85 bracelet, so I need to round that up. I need to sell about 27 bracelets to make $100. Okay. Part B then says, what's the maximum revenue you can earn from these bracelets? So maximum, there's that keyword that I want. That's going to tell me this new formula. X equals the opposite of B over 2 times A. Okay, this is new. So I'm still going to go back to that original equation up here. I'm not going to go back to the one with 100 in it. Back to the original, opposite of B. Okay, so opposite of B. Well, if B is 26, the opposite of 26 is negative 26. Divided by 2 times A, which is negative 1. So if I do that, I'm going to get negative 26 divided by negative 2. My X value is going to be 13. It's asking for my maximum revenue though. And X I just found, right? X equals this. That's the number of bracelets. So what I need to do is I need to take the number of bracelets that I just found and plug it into the X value in the equation to find my Y, or my maximum revenue. So I'm going to have Y equals negative X squared, but I know X now is 13, so I'm going to plug that in. So 13 squared plus 26 times 13, because that's what my X is, plus 123. You can plug that entire thing into your calculator just like you see it, and you would get out that Y equals $292. All right, let's go ahead and look at number 3. This is our last example here. So I have the car that I'm hoping to buy that has fuel efficiency that can be modeled by the equation Y equals negative 0.0177 x squared plus 1.48x plus 3.39, where x is the speed in miles, okay, x is the speed in miles, and y is the fuel economy in miles per gallon, okay? I'm going to find the speeds at which my car will get to 20 miles per gallon. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say that this does not say anything about maximum or minimum, okay? So this is going to be a quadratic formula. I don't see the word max or min. It doesn't talk about the most or the least or the highest or the lowest. So no maximum or minimum, so that tells me it's quadratic formula. Now, it's telling me more information. It's telling me 20 miles per gallon. So since I'm looking at 20 miles per gallon, that's the fuel economy. That's my Y value. So I'm going to take this number and I'm going to plug it in for the Y, and I'm going to solve so I can do quadratic formula. So I'm going to have 20 equals negative 0.0177 x squared plus 1.48x plus 3.39. Now, to do quadratic formula, you have to be equal to 0, so we're going to subtract 20 from both sides. So I'm going to get 0 equals 0.0177 x squared plus 1.48x, and I'm going to have minus 16.61. So now I have my A, my B, and my C, and we can plug it into quadratic formula. So I'm going to do opposite of B, negative 1.48, plus minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A, 0.0177, times C, which is going to be negative 16.61, all divided by 2 times A, so 0.0177. I'm going to plug this whole thing, the square root and everything, into my calculator, and I'm going to get negative 1.48 plus minus. When I plugged that whole thing in, I actually got 1, or about 1, okay, all divided by negative, oh, I forgot that negative. You all see that negative there? Because I forgot that negative and that negative. I should get negative 0.0354. So I'm going to split that into the positive and the negative. So 1.48 plus 1 divided by this. And then negative 1.48 minus 1 divided by this. So if I do the positive, I'm going to end up with 13.56. And then if I do the minus, I'm going to get 70.06. So you're going to notice that I have 2 answers that are both positive. So there are 2 different speeds that I could go that would yield 20 miles per gallon. So I could go 13.56 miles per hour or 70.06 miles per hour. Okay. Looking at part B, what speed will yield the most efficient fuel economy? So most efficient is saying like your maximum. So that tells me I'm going to do X equals opposite of B over 2 times A. So looking at my original equation, opposite of B, so negative 1.48 over 2 times negative 0.0177. We know that negative 1.48 is going to be over negative 0.0358, which is going to end up giving me 41.6 41.81. So 41.81. That's my x, so that's going to be my speed. Okay. And if you're looking at the question is asking what speed will you yield? Well, you guys, I already found the speed, so I don't have to take that number and plug it back in to find the fuel economy. I already know the speed. The speed is going to be 41.81 miles per hour. And again, I know that this is my answer and that's my speed because up in here it says x is the speed in miles per hour. And the formula is x equals. So that's how I know that that's that one. Okay, so this one tends to confuse the most people because it's like, how do I know what to use? How do I know when I have to plug it back in? You really have to determine, first of all, if it says anything about a maximum or a minimum. Remember, if it says max or min at all anywhere, you are going to go ahead and you are going to do that new formula that you haven't seen before, the vertex formula. So that's going to be the x equals opposite of b over 2 times a. If it doesn't say anything about a maximum or a minimum, then you're using quadratic formula. But make sure that you're reading what does your x stand for and what does your y stand for, and are you solving for the correct thing? Okay, if you have any questions, reach out to me, let me help you. Otherwise, good luck with that assignment.